What is up, fellas? Man, how awesome was that? That was incredible. I really enjoyed that. I didn't get to ask nearly as many questions as I wanted to ask, but she answered most of the questions I did want to ask without me directly asking them. Especially towards the end, she really seemed to be confirming a lot of my suspicions and beliefs about archaeology. I would have loved to have gotten more in depth in all of that, but I kept her for 2 whole hours. So really appreciative of her for giving me all that time. But yeah, I mean, the idea, very contrary to what is presented from archaeology, but she was saying pretty clearly that, yeah, it's like the idea that a population could be missed in a country this size, looking at the time spans we're looking at, that's not ridiculous at all. That's probably it. I would go as far as to say it certainly has happened. The question, I guess, would be has it happened with, populations that we wouldn't expect to be there? Because I guarantee there's been tribes that haven't been identified and stuff like that. But has it happened with, say, Europeans? She didn't seem to think that would be a stretch. And I don't think that that's a stretch. So yeah, really pretty strong endorsement, at least of the possibility of diffusion. Which, is something that I believe in very strongly. Call-ins are welcome, very welcome this show. If you have any thoughts on, everything you just watched, any comments, feel free to call in. It doesn't even have to be about Dr. Weiss, but, that was, I'm going to be digesting that for a while. That was really good stuff. Yeah, and I was laughing at you guys in chat going on about the protocols, and it was very funny, her usage of the language. Protocol number 3. It was that was making me laugh for sure. That was very funny. But yeah, the First Amendment argument, it is actually a very strong argument. Like, it's something that, like I said, wouldn't have even occurred to me. And when I first heard it, like, it clicked something in my brain very strongly, because I immediately went to the Mormons. I immediately went, if we replaced the natives with the Mormons, this would be so utterly ridiculous. Obviously ridiculous to me, obviously ridiculous to everyone. But for some reason, when we put it in the perspective of Native Americans, now no one's really thinking that way. No one's going, oh, this is a First Amendment violation, but it very clearly is. So yeah, I really like that as well. Were you present for the whole show, Mr. Watson? So the First Amendment argument with NAGPRA does a few things. One, it dictates that a council has to be formed and consulted with on, like, all of these digs and everything, and the curation of all of these artifacts. And on that council, 2 Native American religious leaders who practice Native American religions have to be a part of it. So that's obviously a violation of NAGPRA. But much more egregious, in my opinion, is that now it has been encoded with this January 12th update that when there's a disagreement between the science and the Native Americans, you have to defer to the Native Americans. So, I've said this in previous episodes. Now, when a museum has artifacts and they go, hey, this belongs to whatever culture, like we've got skeletal remains with DNA evidence. We have the artifacts themselves, which we've placed to this culture. They match this culture, et cetera, et cetera. We have all of this scientific evidence. And then some other tribe comes up and goes, yeah, actually, those are ours. Those are a part of our, religion, et cetera, et cetera. Now that overwrites the scientific evidence. And that's essentially been encoded into law now, even though Congress has not passed this law. It's been written by the Department of Interior, which is the Chevron case that she talked about. So Chevron the EPA, I believe at least, I'm not too familiar with the Chevron case, but I believe it was the EPA was effectively writing laws that Chevron had to follow. And Chevron is suing, going, this is Congress's job. Congress has to write these laws. The EPA does not have the ability to write laws, and they have been. The same things happened with NAGPRA and the Department of Interior. The Department of Interior has been writing this law, updating it for the last 24 years, and they don't actually have the ability to do that. So, there's the First Amendment violation could potentially overturn it. I think that's a stretch. I don't, who knows what the future holds, right, with Trump and everything, but certainly with the systems as they are now, I don't think, even though it's a very blatant First Amendment violation, I don't think that's going to go through the courts. I don't think that's going to be very effective. The Chevron case, like she said, she doesn't necessarily hold that much hope for it either, because even though if the Chevron case overturned these regulations being written by these agencies, would that be able to be used for NAGPRA? I think only if there was a blanket undoing of all of these regulations by any federal agency. So if we decided to do away with all of the regulations from every agency, then NAGPRA might be overturned in that way. But if it's being brought on a case-by-case basis, they go, hey, look, Chevron did it. We have the exact same arguments. We would like to do that for NAGPRA. I think, again, with the systems as they currently are, probably would not go all the way through the courts, probably would not be overturned that way. So that leaves Trump, establishing a new Department of Interior secretary, which the current Department of Interior secretary, who is a Native American female, and is very much in this woke stuff. She was appointed by either Obama or Biden. I think she was appointed by Biden. If, she's able to do all of this through the power that she has currently as Department of Interior secretary, a new Department of Interior secretary could theoretically undo it all, right? He should have the power to undo all of that. So that's another route. And I think maybe the most viable route is actually just pressure externally. I still believe that if people knew what was happening, if they actually understood what was happening, and that's a hell of a challenge to get people to understand, but if they did understand, they would care. I really do believe that people would care about this, that there would be, outrage on social media and Twitter, and that's obviously a very effective tool. We talked about how that is what started, and we didn't even get that much into Elizabeth's story. Her story is very crazy. She's gone through a lot, and it all started because Twitter got on her. Once that tide turned, once that shifted, that vibe shifted, Twitter's going, oh, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. All of her colleagues fell in line going, yeah, let's distance ourselves from this. She's bad, not us. She's bad, not us, right? So external pressure can influence these people a lot. Archaeologists as a group, I think, are weak people. Obviously not Elizabeth, right? She's a true academic, someone who stands for truth. But as she's talking about this new age of archaeology, this new generation of archaeology, they're not in it for the same reasons, which was pretty discouraging to hear, but I'll take her word for it. And so, it's like they're not adhering to the truth. If the external pressure shifted, if it was no longer going, you need to, cancel Elizabeth for wanting to conduct science, and it was, hey, you need to stop erasing history and you need to allow science to happen, like, I think that would produce a very noticeable and immediate shift in the archaeologists themselves, because they're not in this, to find the truth. They're easily influenced by that kind of stuff. So Yeah, feel free to call in, fellas. The link is in the chat. If you need me to repost it, let me know, and I will. Yeah, Slav, legal precedent does matter, does work for a reason, but it's not just archaeology being corrupted. Every institution is being corrupted, and that includes our justice system and our court system. And you're seeing more and more judges just flagrantly violating that kind of thing. And so, yes, in theory, like if the Chevron case goes through, it should be a very easy case to overturn NAGPRA. Would it actually play out that way? I don't have any faith that it would. Not that it couldn't, right? I'm not saying it's impossible, but if I were a betting man, I would probably bet that it wouldn't. And I've worried a lot that I'm being overly dramatic, that I'm being overly pessimistic about everything I'm talking about, NAGPRA and the erasure of history and just all of it. And not only did the conversation tonight confirm that I'm not being overly dramatic, but everything that I've learned about Elizabeth and everything I've read of hers has confirmed that not only am I not being over dramatic, I'm being under dramatic. I'm underrepresenting just how crazy everything has gotten, just how bad things have gotten. And I encourage you guys, she's got a lot of great interviews on YouTube. She'll talk to anyone. I mean, she talked to me. She talks to Camp Gagnon. I don't know who that guy is, but apparently he used to be on Flagrant. So he was like a co-host of the Flagrant podcast. Now he has his own podcast, and he did an interview with Elizabeth Weiss. Weiss. I can't get her name right. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know about Tulsi's heritage. She might be a feather American. She seems pretty cool though. And like Weiss said, Native Americans are not, they're like anyone else. They're a diverse group of people, but there is the activists, right? The activists are bad, just like the activists in pretty much any group. But what is up, Gulag? How you doing?
Hey, what's up?
Not much, man. Just riding the high. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that.
I was really surprised about the diversity of Paleo Indians.
Yeah, and it's like those articles that were originally written that were supporting what she's saying. As far as I know, like they've all been retracted. They were attacked so much that they retracted all those statements. So I'm glad she answered that, because it's hard to even get an answer when every time you look, you go, yeah, this is retracted.
She seems like the kind of person who puts truth above politics, which is really rare among scientists nowadays.
Yes, absolutely. And that's everything I've read from her. Any content I've read from her, she's got great articles that she's written. I meant to link it in the description, but the Minding the Campus article about natives wanting their shit back, fantastic. Her books are good. Her interviews are good. And yeah, she's very open. I mean, you saw she was perfectly comfortable talking about diffusion in America, which is a major no-no, which I guess she's allowed to do now that she's retired, forced to retire, right? But yeah, she's a true academic, like I said, and she seems to be the only one left. I asked her, are there other people openly speaking out against this? And that short list of retired people, but no one, she was the only one who actually had a career to lose that was doing it. She's the only one.
One question that wasn't asked but kind of came up in my mind is that when we're talking about the Paleo Indians, maybe one of the reasons that we don't have many remains left nowadays is not only because it's not studied and it's buried before it's reburied before it's studied, but maybe they used cremation burials. Like one of the reasons we don't have much information about the Vintsa people or the Finno-Ugric people, both of whom pioneered bronze making in Europe, is because they use cremation. Like, do you happen to know whether any Native American tribes have a history of using cremation burials?
Yes. So the Hopewell, which is probably not even a tribe, but it's a whole group that we've labeled the Hopewell. They have tens of thousands of mounds across America, and the way they would construct these mounds is they would bury people. They would build a wooden structure, and then they would burn that down, and then they would put more dirt on top and repeat this process over and over again. So yes, one of the largest cultures in ancient America, the Hopewell, they cover a large area. I know that they were, and I don't know for certain, but I'm pretty sure that this was pretty common across many different tribes, that type of burial was common.
Have you looked into any DNA evidence for more, let's say, European influence in the Americas?
Yeah, it doesn't really exist. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask her, didn't quite have time. And from what she's saying, we could very possibly even have that in a collection somewhere, but it hasn't been tested. That was another question, is like, how, if you find 100 bodies, how many are getting tested? There were so many questions I really wanted to ask, just didn't have the time to. So those are great questions. I want to know the answer too, but it sounded like, yeah, we very possibly could have remains that the DNA might surprise us in a collection currently, and a lot of it just hasn't been tested. DNA testing, by the way, is destructive testing. So just like carbon dating, you have to actually destroy one of the bones or a part of one of the bones in order to conduct these tests. So they're not done every time. They're certainly not done every time. But I don't know how often exactly.
She mentioned that the X-rays were going to be burned or are burned already. Like, I wonder if someone does DNA tests, are they gonna burn the hard drives?
Yeah, so that's the whole issue with NAGPRA, right? Is that they are just going after any and all information. They are trying to purge it all. A lot of it has been purged, and what hasn't been yet, they're coming for it.
The history of the woke movement goes back to Marxism, and leftist ideologies derived from Marxism. And a big part of that is erasing history so you can create a new, like the Soviets called the Homo Sovieticus, Soviet man, that isn't bound to the past, but is looking towards the future and for the common good. So I can see the motive there. Why they would do that?
Yeah, and I mean, you heard me say that. Yeah, I'm conspiratorial. I looked at her personal experience and I go, I don't think there's a conspiracy here, right? But you look at the bigger picture, and it gets a lot harder to make that argument, because everything is happening in the direction of erasing history, and it's happening globally. And like you just said, that's one of the main tools, is erasing the past allows you to control the present and the future. And so, yeah, I absolutely think that's happening. I don't know if we got a clear answer on whether or not she thinks that's happening, but I think she was probably open to that kind of idea.
I'm kind of surprised that these Marxist activists managed to convince the Native Americans to go along with the destruction of their history.
Yeah, and a lot probably are not happy about it, but just like with any group, you have the activists, and those are the voices that are heard. Those are the voices that are promoted. And that's where the conspiracy aspect for me comes in, because I'm sure there are plenty of Native Americans who don't appreciate these laws and don't appreciate what's going on. And I know that for a fact. There have been Native Americans that have definitely complained about this. But whose voice is amplified? Whose voice is actually given, power behind it? And it's the activist groups. And I think that's where the conspiracy comes in. It's like they want to erase history, and so they'll use these dumb Native Americans, the activists, right? Not all Native Americans, and use them to achieve their goals. And it doesn't matter how stupid they are, how stupid they look, or whatever. It's just any means necessary kind of deal, I think. And that's the most convenient tool that they have to work with.
Well, that's about all I wanted to talk and ask about. If anyone else wants to call in, please do.
Yeah. And along with what Elizabeth was saying about the natives, like, they don't want their image tarnished. They do have this image with the American people of, the noble savages, and that they were curators of the land, that they lived in harmony and peace. And it was this mystical kind of population. And the truth doesn't confirm that. The truth is that's not the truth. So that's one reason, is they have an image to protect. Another reason is they do have a lot of power right now. People like power, whether that power is ill-begotten or ill-used. They like to have it, right? And so right now the Native Americans have a lot of power. And if other groups were over here, now that power becomes diminished. Maybe they lose it entirely. Maybe they even lose, some of the other rights that they have to casinos and stuff like that. Who knows? So, there are reasons. There's financial reasons. There's reputation reasons. There's just power reasons that the natives would go along with this and participate in this. But again, it's just the activists. It's not reflective of the native population.
Casinos are the best way to launder money, especially if you are self-governed and don't have to answer to federal regulations.
Yeah, they've done well.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for the great interview. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, Gulag. Appreciate it. So, I, again, just really seem to confirm that all the thoughts that I was having about archaeology, how it operates, the grim reality of all of this, I was genuinely worried that I was overblowing it, because, like I talked about, there's all these contradictions. You read the law says one thing. You read the narrative that's put forward by archaeology, it says something entirely different. And then you read between the lines to see what's actually going on. And that's also entirely different. So it is difficult to get an accurate grasp on this stuff. It's difficult to convince people that what's happening is actually happening, because when they look into it, right, like we talked about, she talked about how NAGPRA was very effective. All of the remains that were supposed to be repatriated had been. But if you Google it, you'll get a lot of articles talking about, all on the first page, right, that are saying, how NAGPRA is a failure, how the majority of artifacts haven't been repatriated, how, these museums have been derelict in their duty to respect these natives and all that stuff. So it really is muddy waters. But everything that she said seemed to confirm that I was on the right track, that my understanding was right, and that I shouldn't be questioning myself. I shouldn't be doubting myself. I should be trusting my gut, because my gut was right. And it's really quite a dire situation. I could. I don't know. I sent her a brief email just thanking her for her time. And I let her know, hey, you have a 100% open invitation forever. to ever come back on. I don't know if we'll ever see her again. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't, but I would be ecstatic if we did. So, yeah, that would be very cool to have her answer more questions. What's up, Slav?
Hey, do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Oh, dang. What is it? Yeah. So I was saying about legal practice. It's like the same way I approach.
I can't hear you now. You're far away from your phone and moving.
One sec. Hear me now?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, my bad, bro. I got some loud ass neighbors. So the reason I bring up the legal president stuff is it's the one way I level head approach people if they ever want to be like, oh, your conspiracy theories about this or that. And it's usually like one specific incident in Dallas or one specific incident that happened, in New York City and DC and Pennsylvania simultaneously. I always hit them with well, this is what the official narrative is. And why do they hide it? And then with this whole NAGPRA stuff, it is a whole thing of, well, this is literally going against everything you guys predicated. We need to support this from the original start, right? So that's why it's like they're the one way. Like the thing is, it's not so much of there is going to be obvious supportive when you tell people about NAGPRA and they're like, oh yeah, we need to do something about this. But the people who are skeptical, there's a great fraction of a portion of them where if you approach them with the legal precedent angle, it will be more palatable. Like they'll be more open to accepting to it because it is going to have to get to the point of like, okay, well, dude, these are literally the words typed onto paper and they're going against this.
Right.
And also it is literally the censure of academia.
Yeah.
So,
And not only there, it was kind of shocking, although not too shocking that like she's talking about how not a single gallery in California is accessible for research anymore. Not a single collection is accessible for research anymore in the entire state of California. So there is the academic side that they're not able to do their research, which is absolutely a problem. There's also the public knowledge side, which is that it's just being purged and removed. Any information, the public is not allowed to know about it.
well,
It's just crazy.
that's crazy. But Goob, you know how my brain works. I could be a little mischievous. Can I weaponize their whole thing of menstruating person? Like if they can do like because that stuff is insane. Like
Yeah.
where
And it's coming from the woke. Like they're so
it's
woke that they've gone
intersection.
against themselves. It's just
I
actual insanity.
love intersectionality in like a chaos way because I know it is so wrong. Like I'm literally becoming like a social Marxist masochist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, unfortunately.
And I hate it. Yeah, dude. And the second I realized it, I'm like, oh, they're not gonna drive me crazy. Like, I'm not gonna even drive myself crazy. It's like, oh, I
Right,
know.
it's 4 green lights. It's 4 green lights, you bastards, you alien bastards. Someone will get that reference.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Star Trek. It's that they tortured Picard. I think it was 3 green lights actually, but they have him in a room with 3 green lights. How many lights are there? He says it's 3, and they're like, no, it's 4, and he refuses to. It's the 2
yeah,
plus 2 equals 5 thing.
yeah, but also it's interesting because some of the demographics not brought up with the election results was one, the Orientals and the Hmongs.
Well,
Nobody.
didn't the Native Americans have the
Yes,
highest
highest
percentage of voting for
switch.
Trump out of any population?
Yeah,
Which
absolutely.
was strange but cool.
Well, I mean, I come on. Trump does casinos. You know
Yeah, I
how,
guess that it makes sense from that aspect. Yeah.
and a lot of I mean, dang, was it you or some other show that had somebody on that like did like a whole research and a whole no research in a book about how there's like fake Indians up in like around. Oh no, it was Mark. Yeah, producer Mark said I think he just had like a show with some lady who did like a whole book on like fake Indians who were basically getting into positions through politics and through private business ventures to
That's
run
definitely happening.
casinos. Yeah, to run casinos all in New England. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
I might check that out. My producer or my family thinks I'm crazy. I might check that out because that sounds. Obviously, I know that's happening to a degree, but getting some specifics sounds like fun.
Yeah, dude. It's. I mean, look. Every even when I was in school, they taught us the term noble savage, and they're like, it is a. I think that's like nuanced. Like the first time I understood the term nuance, where it's like, yeah, they're savages, but we respect their presence and
Right. They
authority.
brutalized each other, but they were so in tune with nature.
Oh no, they gave us that part. No. How because I had really good history teachers. Like I got lucky having good history teachers in the Houston Public School District that I was in growing up. But they're like, no, like we understood their force. Like they were brutal scalpers and like all the frontiersmen who went out there, like they knew like everyone involved in that whole Cowboys and Indians situation. Everybody understood how Henry Kissinger described it as tour de force, jour de force, something like that. Like the way you have to deal with these adversaries that you have to come up against is with like a matching degree of force.
Right.
So but yeah, dude, what is it? Yeah, some of these Indians, bro, they getting real based and shit. I mean, they've always been based, especially since AIM and Wounded Knee. Have you know about that, right? The American Indian Movement resistance in 1973 at Wounded Knee. Like
Uh, Not too much. I've definitely heard of it. I learned about it at one point, but it's not fresh in my memory.
yeah, it was basically like it was like the Indians Ruby Ridge / Waco.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, dude, all I know is like I mean, if not you, but definitely the guest Miss Elizabeth. I can like suggest throwing her name out to some like pods who do be like, hey, who are more so interested, like, and not
Yeah,
more
I
not
saw
not
your comments during the show, and I wasn't ignoring them. I just didn't have an
yeah.
opportunity.
Because what it is not even so much what she could be vocal about, like more people can vocalize about her research and what she studied is more of how she got treated.
Yeah,
Like
and
that.
I thought she was going to talk about. That's what I thought she was going to like open the show with was how she was treated. Um, didn't
Mm,
quite work out, but yeah, she was. It's ridiculous the treatment she's received.
no, I actually like the how she opened with everything that she's like, because it's like, yo, like that sets like the mood for the show. Like I get settled at. I mean, I was outside walking, listening, but I got real cozy listening to her talk about everything she studied, and she's passionate about that stuff.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah,
dead
she was
set.
a weird little kid, man. Imagine a 6-year-old obsessed with bones, like in a good way. But yeah, she was a weird little kid, man.
And no, she was talking about like a lot of her toys are anatomical. Like
Yeah.
I've had like some like one of those anatomical put the animal together with the organs and type. Yeah, no, that like that's a good type of, kid upbringing that
Yeah. Yeah.
versus, iPad games and shit. But yeah, dude, definitely there would be so many people interested in, because what is it? Peterson and Weinstein, all those guys got kicked out of their what is it, teaching
Yeah,
professions,
just
but
the
but it was but because of like gender nonsense, she got kicked out of like the technicalities that are constantly changing of her degree field and profession, right?
yeah, she was a tenured professor that was forced out of her university. So something that isn't even supposed to be able to happen, right? She had to go through a whole legal battle, right, about it. Um, and yeah, it's all the one of the crazy parts is that everything she was saying, she had said before. She had been saying for years before. And it only became an issue very suddenly, and all of her colleagues turned on her very suddenly. And so, yeah, like her story does have a lot of parallels with like Peterson and stuff like that, and I think would resonate with a lot of people. Absolutely.
But but she has. I mean, it's what pushed her out is not even so crazy. I mean, they look. I have my criticisms of Peterson and Weinstein's guys in terms of their like media engagement. Not like criticisms against them, but it's like this is the media criticizes them because they got forced into media engagement. And like I don't think they ever grew up and went to school to do what they do now, but now it seems like they've been forced into it, which is just kind of annoying for everyone. But hers is just like I think it would just resonate way more to where it's like this is like a streamlined thing where it has
Because she was just trying to do her job.
Yeah, and also made the comment. It's like, dude, if they're gonna start removing all this proof that you could go physically see,
They
like,
already have.
yeah, I mean, if they're doing that and it's been happening, and it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna just for funsies, bro. I'm gonna be bigoted. I'm saying, bro, natives never existed. Show me some proof. Show me some proof I could see with my eyes.
We are
And
getting to the point where you could make that statement
but I
non-ridiculous.
want to make
We're
that
getting
statement.
very close to that point.
I want to start making that statement early so people can go back and be like, okay, hey guys, can we stop with this NACRA stuff before?
Yeah,
So
no, and I mean, I
Psycho Slav is gonna start having real ammunition if we don't bring out the artifacts.
I have not found the best way to reach people yet. I don't know how to do it. So I'm open to any ideas on how to do it, and that might be a good strategy because yeah, we're not like that is still a ridiculous thing to say, but a generation from now, that might be like an actual question that people are asking, like an unironic kids sitting in school being like, "Show me the proof they never existed," and genuinely not believing it. Like that's not a crazy future to predict here. So yeah, that might be a good strategy, getting a jump on it.
Yeah, no, I'll yeah, like I was mentioning, Citizen Pod. He's had a few uh, guys who've questioned antiquity on, and these are guys who are like they're pretty well, not like well connected, but like they have a lot of good streams of communication with the administration. I mean, these guys are called the Drinking Bros. One of the guys does Citizen Pod, but dude, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Tulsi, I mean, Tulsi is what is, I mean, she's a coconut feather, but
A coconut feather? She's
yeah,
a Hawaiian.
Hawaiian, yeah, yeah. I mean, dude, and also I don't know why people bitching about the appointments. I mean, they're always going to be pro Tel Aviv.
Well, I was strongly anti-Vance initially, so I'm going to refrain from bitching until I actually see him in action. because when Vance was decided, I was like, oh, what a terrible choice. Like, well, that's the dumbest possible move. And you know what? Vance has been great. So I'll wait to see what they actually do.
It didn't, like, when they announced him, dude, I told everyone, I was like, dude, I never heard of this guy. And then it was like,
But I will give the left one thing, which is that the dude looks weird as fuck, especially early on. He's normaled out a little bit, but all the mascara, all the eyeliner, it was like, that's the guy you picked. He did make a really terrible first impression.
But then the left shot themselves in the foot by having all of the stations say the same word weird. And then
they overdid it,
dude literally just goes on, does multiple 3-hour sets, being like, look.
Yeah, goes on the podcast and is the most normal guy in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, now, I'm never, like, okay, he's a politician. Of course he's going to be fucking sus. They will never openly denounce Israel. So, I mean, that's just the whole thing with all the points. Dude, honestly, if they say Trump being in office is fascist, the only fascist thing I want is RFK to be with food and fat concentration camps and him like doing Javier Milei afuera, like get all this shit out, stop subsidizing soy and corn.
I'm to the right of Attila the Hun. I like actually think that not Attila the Hun. What's the other guy? The other Mongol that
Genghis.
Genghis, yeah. I actually really like Genghis Khan's mentality, and I think that is what we truly need. So, hey, if Donald Trump wanted to go full Khan on us, I would support it. I don't think that's going to happen, but I would fully back it.
Well, I mean, his whole thing was,
but I'm down for fat camps for sure.
I mean, make him walk. I mean, I know why he chose Chrissy Noam. You need a pretty face for deporting, because she's in charge of DHS. I mean, what is it? Homan, he's the one in charge of the actual implementations.
Homan might bring some of that Khan.
Dude,
Homan might have that Genghis in him.
Dude, it's the only problem I have with him is it is going to be an expanded security state, especially with digital. They're going to have some system of digital. And what sucks is like, dude, I have the perfect system, which is like, speak English or show me your exit dot of the like the only reason somebody should be living in America and not speaking English, existing in America and unable to speak English is because you're on vacation. That's it.
No, I agree with that.
And they're gonna and they will come out and say like, hey, come forward, make it easy, turn yourself in. We will make it difficult, but it ain't gonna be Homan saying that. It's gonna be Chrissy Noam with her pretty puppy killing face saying that. It's dude, we're in for. I mean, fucking Bernie Sanders just says he wants to join Trump. This is ridiculous, bro.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what the future holds. It's exciting times.
The last thing is, I got my ears perked up when she mentioned that the legality of you can't sue Indians because they claim sovereignty.
I didn't have anything to say, but it sure was interesting.
I mean, is there going to be any sort of legal loophole expansion of people claiming sovereignty? Because, I mean, it's going to be a 50-50 because we can get Mad Max in some parts of the country.
Look into, I think it's Dakota. Was it, am I got my states mixed up? I think it might have been Dakota. Half of the state was returned to the Indians a couple years ago. The whole, like the majority of the state became a reserve. And some very serious questions were posed when this happened of like law enforcement. How does this work now with half a state is federally unenforceable? So like the feds have no jurisdiction whatsoever in half of this state now. I don't really know what came of it. I think it kind of just quietly slid into the background, and I don't know if there were ever any big issues that have arisen yet, but I know there was talk of some potential serious issues, like they were, what happens when there's a murderer, like, and it's on the behalf of the natives now to enforce those laws, and it's like, what if they just refuse to? Now the feds have no jurisdiction to step in, and so yeah, there's some interesting questions. I don't know what all came of it, but I think it was Dakota. Pretty much the entire state is now Indian land.
Well, when you have all of these homogenous communities, whether it's Indian land or it's black neighborhoods, one of the key things about societal problems is the lack of reporting, because they just have they all just have a culture of don't snitch, white man don't need to come in, get involved, blah blah blah. But
that definitely exists with the natives. Yeah,
there's a major discrepancy in both communities of them requesting funds for things for like funding for support groups for domestic abuse, sexual violence, abortion. Like they request all this funding for all these sort of resources that are catered to primarily like women being battered and also
children,
and children, of course, and then just typical crime and violence. But everything's being addressed on the back end for those who suffer the tail end consequences versus addressing like
dealing with the actual problem.
Yeah, so that's where the next step rises, and then the biggest road bump to addressing that is going to be everyone who says, well, pointing those facts out is problematic. That whole crowd is going to come out and be like, well, saying the discrepancy exists is and then be like, oh, you're not a woman, what would you understand? It's like, well,
and it's white people's fault that the discrepancy exists anyways. So, if you want to point that out, it's really just more ammunition at the white people anyways. So,
yeah, well, yeah, dude, I'm so glad that you got you day but like week by week are like cementing and codifying your whole NAGPRA counter movement.
I just wish I could get more people to care about it. I've built a case. I've built the case. I just need people to
you got a foundation laid. Your foundation's been laid. The concrete's been dried, dude.
With this interview, it's the finishing touches I think were put on it.
Yeah, she stamped the seal of approval on your drafted house plans. Like, imagine building a house. So, yeah,
I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
Yeah, just make an Instagram and just make it strictly for like messaging for like who shows you want to get on. Because have you been on Triple E's show yet?
Triple E?
No, Sam Tripoli.
Sam Tripoli. No. No, I could reach out to him though.
Yeah, because you and Danny and Mark, y'all, yeah, you can communicate with producer Mark very easily.
I'm not very familiar with Sam Tripoli. I only know him through Danny's show. This is the type of thing he'd be interested in.
Oh yeah, dude. All the questioning of antiquity, but this whole NAGPRA thing, like I said, dude, it is, don't approach it from the conspiratorial side of erasing history. No, just go from it's the same way I talk about 9/11. Like, okay, well, 38 pages back to back are redacted. The JFK Commission, so many redacted pages, and they use the word magic.
It's just it's difficult because all of the evidence that I gathered for NAGPRA was like reading in between the lines. It was all anecdotal. If you go to Google because I've had people do this. I've told people about NAGPRA, and then they go try and look it up on their own and research it on their own, and they come back with the polar opposite, view from what the actual reality is. Like, Google is just straight up lying to people. They're presenting a narrative that's just completely untrue. So I don't know how to break through that. Like, now that I have an archaeologist who's confirming it, but it was a 2-hour interview. I don't know if there's. I'll have to go back and check to see if like there's good short clips I can pull out of that really kind of definitively say what I want. I don't know that there is, though. And so it's difficult when this is happening. History is being erased, but you have to dig and dig and dig and really read between the lines to realize that that's what's happening. If you just go on Google and you look for answers, the answers are going to say, no, this is not happening. No.
Yeah, I mean, I think just me being a brutal motherfucker, dude. I think the most effective way would probably be, hey, the next generation of kids are going to deny that Indians ever suffered and that they're all just being whiny, drunk bitches in teepees because they got nothing to show. I think that would be like literally put a fire under their feet to be like, oh no, let's like turn all this back. It's either the future generations can deny Indians because they removed all the proof, or basically how Elizabeth was treated, which is fully documented by the university. What was she said? San Diego, right?
Yeah, San Jose.
Oh, San Jose,
California.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, at least she got good weather to, feel genuinely mistreated. Yeah, dude. When she was explaining all that, bro, my blood was boiling.
Good. Good. I'm glad that other people are having that reaction too.
Yeah. Well, I'll forward her name on, and you keep fine.
Keep plugging away.
I don't know. I hate using the word manifesto just because everyone made it gay as shit. But if you could codify a single page or like a single paragraph of NAGPRA and how it's literally just going to lead to
the introduction of her book does that pretty well. That it's a little bit more than a single page, but the introduction of NAGPRA erasing the past or erasure of the past, that she does it pretty well.
All right, cool. Yeah. But yeah, dude, definitely set up an Instagram, and I think you'll just have to be picky and choose. Like, if you want to start posting info about this, you gotta be real picky and choosy about what kind of language you use, and maybe just
I'm not great with language. That's something I struggle. Like this, I like you said, I did the legwork, I did the groundwork, I set up the foundation. That's the stuff that I'm pretty good at. The actual delivering the message part, I struggle with. I do.
All right. Well, what is it? Just
in a way that's going to be consumed by the masses. You know what I'm saying? It's like I can talk about it at length and in depth and answer questions. I'm good with that. But as far as like little sound bites that are going to catch people's attention and get them to care, like that's hard for me.
Yeah. Well, just set up the Instagram just so like other people who have shows that would genuinely be interested in this.
Yeah, I set up a Twitter for that reason, and that's how Elizabeth found me, was through Twitter. So yeah, I just need to do more promotion.
Yeah. Well, hey man, fight the good fight, brother.
All right, man. Thank you for calling in. I'm gonna. My dogs are pissed off. I haven't given them dinner, and it's way too late for that. So I'm gonna go feed them, and I'll catch you guys next week. Next week, I'm gonna go back to India and talk about that some more, and just talk about things. I'm gonna talk about Kush a little bit more. Talking about a few things, but like I've got corrections for the Sigiriya stuff. I didn't like at all how I was talking about Sigiriya or Siragia. I also can't keep the Indian names straight, which, to be fair, they're Hindu names. They're really difficult. So I think that's fair that I can't keep those straight. But yeah, gonna make some corrections. Gonna address Kush and some other things, and it'll be a more laid back, relaxed call-in episode next week. So I will catch you fellas then. Peace out.